Dorinda leads Point 8 team combining policy, research, and strategy expertise to advance sustainable transportation and demand management programs. She holds a master's program in social legal studies from York University and a BBA from Toronto. And she's a certified project professional. I will now pass it on to Dorida. You have 2 minutes for your presentation. Timer starts now.
Great. Thank you so much. And it's great to be here. Happy World Transport Day to everybody. So everyone always asks me, like, what is Point A? That's like the classic question that I get. So we are a nonprofit organization. We actually started as a grassroots organization back in 2001 in the Black Creek area, so kind of northwest Toronto. And the whole goal was to reduce congestion, which I know depending on where you live, it's a big issue. And maybe not so much depending on where you're located. But we are actually on the demand side of sustainable transportation. So when we think about transport, we mostly think about like maybe your like subways and buses, maybe like bike lanes. But we're actually on the kind of the people side of things. So how do we work with individuals to consider, what are the barriers that they're experiencing, how they live their lives, and how we can offer them knowledge, support, and incentives to actually try different forms of sustainable transportation. Because I think a lot of the times we think, you know what, just build the bike lane or build, whatever it is, and people will use them. And that's not necessarily the case. So we actually work a lot with workplaces and employers because it's important to bring businesses into the conversation when we talk about climate change and climate action. And we also work with increasingly with communities to help individuals figure out what are the various sustainable forms of transportation that work best for them, and to hopefully increase access to those forms so that we can not only be more sustainable, but also, as this whole webinar is pointing out, that we can actually hopefully lower the costs of getting around and have more prosperity, not just individually, but as a society.
The question to you is, so your work at Point A, bridging sustainable transport with economic and community development. Now, how can improved mobility systems directly reduce poverty and enhance prosperity in urban and suburban communities like Vaughan and North Toronto?
Great. Thanks, Obi. It's a great question. And I mean, I'll speak also beyond the context of kind of Toronto. And you mentioned in your presentation, like a trade-off between sometimes like housing or like living in a more affordable place versus, you know, like it's more expensive, therefore, to get around. And so when we speak specifically around mobility systems, I think most of us think beyond roadways, it's often public transit. And many people, even within large urban communities, live in what we call transit desert. So you just don't have access to a bus, or it's like very hard to get access to it. And I think that there are so many stories, even across our country, where, and I hear this all the time, whether maybe you're a student. Before the Ontario government introduced the one fare policy, in which you had to pay multiple fares. The second you cross a jurisdiction, you had to pay another fare. A lot of them had to make the decision, do I go to class today? Because if I go to class, I may not be able to eat food because I have to pay for transport. But now with the one fare policy, it's much cheaper and they're able to afford to eat. This is a trade-off. For
Yeah.
other people, maybe living in more rural places across our country, it's like, can I afford the gas to get to my health appointment? If I don't, then I can't go to my doctor's appointment. All of these things have a significant impact on our prosperity. If you don't have access to education, you don't have access to healthcare, then it's very hard to have a quality of life. We know that, like we say, health is wealth. That's very important. And there are additional costs when we don't have a healthy life, or if we're not able to eat. These are very basic things that we need. So when we look at the importance of mobility systems, improving things like access to transportation, whether that is in the form of carpooling, we talk a lot about that, or it is in fact advocating for more public transit, or helping people to at least be able to access a bus, whether that's like cycling, then it will help them not only with getting to and from places, but it means getting to jobs, getting to appointments, getting to school, which has long-term impacts on one's life.
Thank you. That's there. Yeah, definitely, Dorinda. So like we had said, transportation is not just about movement, right? It impacts people's lives. It empowers people, it's prosperity, it's good health, it's it covers all angles. So thank you for that. Point A's last mile shuttle services have become a model for connecting people to workplaces and transit hubs. Now, what lessons have you learned from scalability, inclusivity, and environmental impact from this initiative?
Yeah, so maybe shifting gears a little bit. So we actually offer multi-site shuttles. So our shuttles go from the ones that actually have been around the longest, now over 10 years, are from Don Mills subway station, for those of you who know, to two of Toronto's largest business parks. Most people are always like, there are business parks in Toronto? There are. And we go to two of them, so the Consumers Road one as well as the Gordon Baker Road. And the reason why we actually introduced them was because there's very few organizations that really do this. There are shuttles, you probably see them on the road, but they're often private. So they go from a building to a particular location. And for us, we actually group together a number of different office buildings, and in one case, a residential tower, a condo. And they're able to take advantage of what feels like, a private or semi-private shuttle, which would otherwise be very expensive to be able to operate. And part of the reason why last mile is so important, in case some of you are like, what is last mile? Because obviously we speak in kilometers here in Canada. If you've ever opened up your Google Maps, sometimes when it's like trying to get from this place to this place and driving takes like 15 minutes and then the public transit option is like 45 minutes. But if you actually look, sometimes it's like, oh, it's because I have to walk 20 minutes. That's what's
Mhm.
taking up the majority of the time. And so most of us are like, I'm not choosing that. I'm not even going to walk. Well, the great thing about a last mile solution, and it could be anything, in this case, we're speaking specifically about shuttles, is that it enables us to reduce that time significantly. So in this case, it goes from the subway station directly to the number of workplaces, and you know exactly the time it's coming. It's very on time, and you can get to and from work or home. And it's great because it's open to not just like people who work there, and you can be of all incomes who work in this building. So you're going to be maybe sitting next to someone, maybe sitting next to the CEO. I don't know. So it's really interesting from an inclusivity perspective because you're sharing the space with a lot of different kinds of people, but also visitors as well. So it's really a good model for not only reducing the environmental impacts, but also promoting some inclusivity and allowing people to actually get to and from places on time.
Interesting. Thanks for that. So yeah, um it's very good. It's good to know. So I we will have to really shine light on that a lot because it's really it looks like an excellent initiative. That's well done. You've collaborated across government, not-for-profits, and the private sector. Now, what role do these cross-sector partnerships play in accelerating the transition to low-carbon transport systems in Ontario?
Simon, you pointed out a good point. I mean, and Gabriel, you live this every day. It's expensive to build transit systems or transportation systems, whether it's roads or, getting buses or light rail. It's a lot. And therefore, I think most of what we do, no matter where you are, requires some kind of collaboration and partnership. And everything we do, whether it's delivering our main programs to our workplaces, to working with communities or even event organizers, you name it, it's always done in collaboration and in partnerships, which by the way is often really ideal, but we recognize it's challenging and it's hard, right? You're ultimately dealing with a lot of different organizations and people. And yet I think that what's powerful about that is we all need to not be pointing fingers at one another, and we need to all be working together. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we are working constantly in collaboration. I mean, here in Ontario, our main program is the Smart Commute program, and that is delivered across now at least 10 different jurisdictions and governments. We always complain and say, like, oh, governments don't work well together and it's not possible. And yet, we sit in a room with all of the like in the greater Toronto Hamilton area. Um, the program actually has grown during the pandemic, which is probably unheard of. Now, like London, Sudbury, Bruce County, and probably other regions are looking to join, and they all sit at the table. And it feels like sometimes this big, it's like it's very much a family, right? But it works. And I think that that is the most powerful thing is that we're able to bring together people, businesses, and governments together. And by doing this, even though it feels very hard to start, once we get started, I think doing this on an everyday basis has made such a significant impact. And so we want to continue that journey so that together we're able to reduce the costs of a lot of these initiatives, but also bring people together.
All right, thanks, Thank you. So collaboration is key. I guess collaboration is key in everything. The ability to bring people to the table. You get to solutions are come up, reduce solutions are designed faster, and hopefully, key people, are able to be there to make the right decisions.